Hello, guys. Welcome to this final part of the lecture series on probability and statistics for business and data science. In this topic, we'll be discussing about the different type of distributions. With distributions, we mean how our data is distributed. What are different ways in which we can find the different kinds of spread of data, or what my data can actually look like. So there are some standard forms, some standard distributions as per se that we follow and that we need to study. So we'll be talking about these three distributions here in the lecture. Right, so a distribution describes all the probable outcomes of a variable. Okay, so a distribution tells us about what are all the possible ways in which my data can come out, in which my data can uh, look about. Okay, so in a discrete distribution, the sum of all the individual probabilities must equal 1. Discrete distribution means there are intervals, there are discrete or like digital boundaries are there. Okay, so it is not continuous, right? So in a discrete distribution, the sum of all the individual probabilities must equal 1. In a continuous distribution, the area under the probability curve equals 1. Okay, when we talk about intervals, we are talking about a discrete distribution, and we are not talking about intervals, then we are talking about a continuous distribution. So in any kind of distribution, the total sum or the summation or the integral of the individual probabilities must be equal to 1. First, we talk about discrete probability distributions. Okay, discrete probability distributions are also called probability mass functions. Okay, we will be talking about three main discrete distribution functions, distributions like uniform distribution, binomial distribution, and Poisson distribution. Poisson or Poisson, whatever you feel like. First is the uniform distribution. So, uh, rolling a fair die has six discrete, equally probable outcomes, right? So, this example will explain the meaning of discrete, right? So, if you are rolling a die, you can get an output whether 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, right? You cannot get an output between 1 and 2. Like, you cannot get 1.5, you cannot get 2.3 or 4.9. You will not get an output like this. So your output is discrete, it is not continuous, right? So if you are rolling a fair die, it has six discrete equally probable outcomes. You can roll one or two but not a 1.5. Okay, the probabilities of each outcome are evenly distributed across the sample space. So with this line, what we mean is that the probabilities of each outcome are evenly distributed across the sample space. So the probability of getting a 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 is all equal, right? So this is called even distribution of probabilities. Okay, so if you want to plot the probabilities on a plot, right? So on my x-axis, I have my outcomes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on my y-axis, I have the probabilities. So for getting a, if I roll a die, the probability of getting 1 is equal to 0.167. It is also equal to the probability of getting a 2, or which is equal to the probability of getting a 3. So the chance of getting any of these outcome is almost equal, and all these heights will always sum up to 1. Okay, next up is binomial distribution. Right, so binomial means there are two discrete mutually exclusive outcomes of a trial. Okay, so bi means two, nominal means variable. Okay, so there are two variables, two discrete mutually exclusive outcomes of a trial. Okay, so there are just two outcomes and they are mutually exclusive. Mutually exclusive means they cannot occur together. So if you toss a coin, you cannot get both head and tail, right? Either you will get head or you will get tail, right? Or whether something is on or off, either whether sick or healthy, success or failure, right? So in general, we refer to the two outcomes as success or failure. Okay, because there are only two outputs, two outcomes, so we can refer to them by success or failure. They can be anything, any two outcomes. A Bernoulli trial is a random experiment in which there are only two possible outcomes, success or failure. A series of trials n will follow a binary distribution as long as the probability of success is constant. Okay, so there are two conditions that should be maintained to for a trial to follow binary distribution. First of all, that the probability of success is constant. So if we are doing tossing a coin, then the probability of getting a head or a tail should remain constant throughout the experiment, and the trials are independent of each other. Okay, and the trials are should be independent. So if I toss once, the probability, whatever the outcome will be, it does not affect the outcome of the next toss of the coin, right? So given the probabilities of observing X successes in N trials, right? Suppose we are tossing the coin 100 times. So N is 100, and I want to get, okay, what is the probability of getting 50 heads, or what is the probability of getting 90 heads? So for heads, for getting a head is a success in our particular case. So X will be like 90. Okay. So the probability of success on a single trial is denoted by P. So the probability of success in a single trial denotes P. So for a coin toss, this P is equal to 0.05. Sorry. This P is equal to 0.5. Okay, or 1 by 2. Assume that P is fixed for all the trials, right? So this is the formula to calculate the probability of X successes in N trials. So suppose I want to get the probability of X successes in N trials when the probability P, small p, of each success is known. Okay. So this formula gives me the probability of getting, suppose X here is say 90. So what is the probability of getting 90 heads? And here is in 100 trials where small p is what? 0.5. Okay, so the formula is this. This thing is the same as NCX, which we have seen before, combination. Okay, NCX p to the power x 1 minus p to the power n minus x. Okay, this is the formula to calculate the probability of getting 90 heads in 100 trials where the probability is 0.5 of each success. Okay, this is very important. Please keep this in mind. Next, we'll see how a binomial distribution looks like. Suppose for 50 trials, and the probability is fixed at 1.5, or sorry, the probability is fixed at 1 by 2 or zero point 0.5. If you want to see the number of successes, or if you want to see how it looks like the distribution, it looks like this. Okay, so on the x-axis is the number of successes. Okay, is the number of times I can get head. Okay, so this particular point is like suppose 16. So the probability of getting 16 heads in 50 trials is something about like almost very close to zero, like this one. This point is 20. The probability of getting 20 heads is 0.04, right? The probability of getting what this point is, this is 25. So the probability of getting 25 heads is almost zero point 0.1, right? So the highest probability is of getting 25 heads. Then the probability of getting the successes decreases. Okay, it is decreasing in this direction. It is the number of successes, 30 success, 40. So getting 50 out of 50 heads, the probability is almost zero, right? It is almost zero, not exactly equal to zero. So this is what a binomial distribution looks like. This is the shape of a binomial distribution. So it is maximum at this particular 25 for this case when n is 50 and p is 0.2, 0.5 or 1 by 2. Next, the shape of binomial distribution when n is equal to 16 and p is equal to 1 by 6. Okay, so this is what the shape of binomial distribution looks like when we're talking about a die, right? P is 1 by 6 in case of a die, right? Because the probability of success or getting any number is 1 by 6 and the number of trials are 16. So now we can see this graph as, so what is the probability of getting 6 sixes? Okay, 6 sixes in 16 trials is almost 0.025, right? At this point. Now, what is the probability of getting 3 successes? 3 successes is almost what? 0.24, right? This one. The probability of getting 2 success or mainly getting 2 sixes is what? Just more than 0.25. Okay. So this is what, how many success I can get in 16 trials. Success can be getting a 5, getting a 4, getting a 6, or getting a 2, like that. Okay. Now let's take a binomial distribution exercise. If you roll a die 16 times, what is the probability that 5 comes up 3 times? Okay. So based on the chart, it should be just shy of 0.25. So we want what? Let's go to the back. We want 3. We want that number 5 should come exactly. 5 comes up 3 times. So 5 comes up 3 times. So on my x-axis is the number of times I want to get the success, right? So 3 is almost just below 0.25 or just shy of 0.25. This is my answer, right? This is my answer from graph. It is like almost equal to 0.24. Now let's try to solve this by formula. My x is equal to 3 and our number of trials is 16 and the success probability of each success is p is equal to 1 by 6, right? Let's see. So I want probability of getting 3 successes out of 16 trials when the probability of each trial is 1 by 6. This is my question, right? So I will do ncx p to the power x 1 minus p to the power n minus x. Okay, if you expand this particular formula, this becomes this n factorial divided by x factorial multiplied by n minus x factorial into p to the power x 1 minus p n to the power x n minus x. Now you, when you plug in all the values, you get this as your answer, and this is almost what exactly what we get from the graph 0.242. Okay. Now, if you want to use Excel, then you can directly use this particular formula, which is equal to binom dot distribution. 3, you put your x, your n, your probability, and false, right? If you want to use Python, you can import binom from this scipy.stats and use binom.pmf, probability mass function, and 3, 6, same values you can pass, right? And you can get the value like this. Now we will talk about Poisson distribution. So a Poisson distribution, a binomial distribution considers the number of successes out of n trials. A Poisson distribution considers the number of successes per unit time, right? Suppose when you have a roll of time, or when you put time in picture, then you have to you have to talk about Poisson distribution. Okay. Suppose I want to consider what is the number of successes per unit of time over the course of many units, okay, or any other unit, or like distance. Alright, so calculation of the Poisson probability mass function starts with the mean expected value or the mean. So we first calculate the mean of the probability mass function, right? Then this is assigned to the lambda. So lambda is equal to occurrences upon interval. So there is a parameter of Poisson distribution called lambda, which is equal to the average or the mean expected value, and which is equal to the occurrences of divided by interval. Next is the equation of Poisson distribution looks like this, where probability of x is equal to lambda to the power x e to the power minus lambda divided by x factorial, right? E is called the Euler's number and the value is 2.718. Right, so this is what my Poisson distribution looks like. So mu is equal to 8. Okay, and on the x, I have my successes, 10 successes, 5 successes, right? So let's take an example. A warehouse typically receives 8 deliveries between 4 and 5 p.m. on Friday. What is the probability that only 4 deliveries will arrive between 4 and 5 p.m. this Friday, right? So we are talking about like a Flipkart or a logistic warehouse, okay, or a factory where it receives 8 deliveries between 4 and 5 p.m. on Friday, okay. And now, what is the probability that only 4 deliveries will arrive between 4 and 5 p.m. this Friday? So to calculate that, my x is equal to 4. I want to calculate what is the probability for 4 trucks, right? And the lambda is 8 because average is 8. It says typically receives 8 deliveries. So that means my average is 8. So I will put this in formula. X is equal to probability of x according to the Poisson distribution is equal to lambda to the power x e to the power minus lambda divided by x factorial. If I put all the values, I get 0.05, right? So it's very rare that I'll get uh, 4 deliveries, right? So if you check this with graph, so now if you see the chart also, so at chart I want to calculate what if the mu is equal to 8, what should be the, so if mu is equal to 8, at what is the probability of getting 4 successes, right? If you look at this previous graph, so mu is equal to 8, I want 4 successes. So 4, the probability is like almost something like a 0.45 or zero point 0.5, right? 0.05. It's almost here, right? This agrees with this calculation also, right? Now the cumulative mass function is simply the sum of all the discrete probabilities, Okay, the probability of seeing fewer than four events is the Poisson distribution. So now suppose I want to calculate what is the probability of getting less than four deliveries between 4 and 5 p.m. So I want to calculate probability of X such that X is less than 4. So that is, I want probability when there is zero truck. I want probability. So now we just calculated the probability for uh, four trucks being arrived. Now I want to calculate what is the probability that less than four trucks arrive. That means I want to calculate all the probabilities in this particular direction. So what is the probability that no trucks arrive? What is the probability that one truck will arrive? What is the probability that two trucks will arrive? That three trucks will arrive? And I will add all of them, right? Because at least means less than 4. So less than 4 will be the case when no trucks arrive, like probability 0, when one truck arrive, when two truck arrive, or when three truck arrive. So I will add all of these probabilities. So when you add up all these probabilities, we call this cumulative mass function. Just like we aggregate all the marks from first semester, second semester, third semester at the final of our degree, we add up all the marks to get the final GPA. Or like in school, we get like first term, second term, third term, half yearly and annual exam. So it's like calculating all the marks up to that particular point. So here the point is less than 4. Right, remember that the sum of all the possibilities is equal to 1. So the probability of seeing at least one is right. Suppose our question is like, what is the probability that we will see at least one delivery between 4 and 5 p.m. So at least one means at least one means whether there is one delivery or two delivery, three delivery, four, five, six, seven, eight, or anything, which is like at least should be one. So our case is, so to calculate this, either we add up for starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up to infinity, or we do 1 minus the probability of 0. So the only case that remains is there is no truck arrives. So if we remove that probability from the total probability, we will get the probability of getting at least one delivery. Okay, so at least one is equal to 1 minus probability of X is equal to 0. Right, and with this we can solve our problem. Right, now our second question is, a warehouse typically receives 8 deliveries between 4 and 5 p.m. on Friday. What is the probability that fewer than 3 will arrive between 4 and 5 p.m. this Friday? Now I want to calculate what is the probability that fewer than 3, that means less than 3 arrives. Less than 3 will be probability of 0 plus probability of 1 plus probability of 2 deliveries, right? So 0 to 2 like this, and we get the probability is 0.0137, right? So the Poisson distribution assumes that the probability of success during a small time interval is proportional to the entire length of the interval. Okay, if you know the expected value over an hour, then the expected value over 1 minute of that hour is lambda minute is equal to lambda hour by 60. We know that for that particular 4 to 5 p.m., that is 1 hour, the mean value is 8, right? So we can find out per minute the value of arrival per minute by dividing it by 60. Okay, because we know that by the question, between 4 and 5 p.m. on a Friday, there are 8 truck delivery trucks. Okay, 4 and 5 p.m. So for 1 hour, the mean is 8. For 60 minutes is 8. For 1 minute, it will be 8 lambda by 60, right? Lambda hour by 60. So now my next question is, what is the probability that no deliveries arrive between 4 minute to 4 minute 4 hours 5 minute, 4 p.m. 5 at exactly 4 p.m. or 4 p.m. 5 minutes, right? So what is the probability that within this 5 minute interval, no truck will arrive or no deliveries will arrive, right? So we will take X is equal to 0 because this is our case. We want to get a probability of X is equal to 0 when lambda 1 hour is equal to 8. So lambda 5 minutes is equal to lambda 1 hour divided by 60 into 5, right? So it is 0.6667. So now probability of X, like within that particular, we want to find out the probability that 0 trucks arrive. So it is lambda to the power X to the power minus lambda divided by X factorial. Here lambda we will use in minutes because because here in our case we want to figure out the probability for that particular 5 minute interval, not a complete hour. Okay, so the probability is 0.5134. So the probability is quite high that within the first 5 minutes, 4 p.m. to 4 p.m. 5 minutes, no trucks are going to arrive. It is quite high. It is like almost half. Okay, so to do the same using Excel, you can use this formula is equal to Poisson dot distribution. You can pass like number of success you want, the value of lambda, right? And So false means like you want cumulative or not or exact. So if you want the probability of x is equal to 4, then you put it false. If you want probability greater than equal to or less than equal to less than less than equal to 3, then you will pass 2 and lambda value and keep it true. That means cumulative. Okay. And if you want to get what is the probability at that no deliveries arrive between 4 and 4 hour 5 minutes, then you will pass like the first value should be 0 because you want to get probability of no deliveries. Then you will update the you will pass the lambda value for minute according to the minute, and then you will do this false because you want this exact value, not the cumulative value. Okay. And using if you do want to do the same using Python, you can import this Poisson. So from scipy.stats import Poisson and do Poisson.pmf. You can pass the values 4 comma 8. Right. If you want to do for the cumulative thing, like if you want to calculate the fewer than 3 deliveries between 4 and 5 p.m., you can do Poisson.cdf. Here it was Poisson.pmf. There you can do Poisson.cdf cumulative. Okay. And 2 and 8, because you fewer than 3 means 0 1 2. If you use CDF, it will count add up all probabilities up to 2 0 1 2. Okay. Then if you want to find out probability of no deliveries between 4 hour and 4 hour 5 minutes, you pass the x should be 0. You just use the same Poisson.pmf, and you pass lambda should be the updated lambda according to the minute. Okay, now we talk about the continuous probability distributions. Right, so continuous probability distributions are also called probability density functions. So we'll be talking about three distributions mainly: normal distribution, exponential distribution, and beta distribution. Right, so beta distribution is not that much important, but these two, normal distribution and exponential distributions, are very important. Right, so normal distributions are many real life data points follow a normal distribution: people's heights, weights, population, blood pressure, test scores, and measurement errors. So most of the natural processes tend to follow normal distribution. Okay, so normal distribution is that says that a lot of high amount of values will be around the mean central value, and the values towards the ends will be very less, or the frequency of frequency of values will be very less towards the end, and all the values tend to fall around the central mean value. Okay, so suppose if you talk about your the if you know in your school or in your college, if you ask the birth year of your friends, of all your classmates, like you will find that most of them have the same birth year as you, or maybe one year plus or 1 year minus. There will be very rare cases who are like 2 3 years younger than you or 2 3 years older than you. Okay. Or if you weigh if you find the weight of all the students of your class, you will find that there is a average weight that will be around like 60 or 60 or 65 kgs. So most of the students of the class will weigh between 60 to 70 kgs, and very less people will be weighing like around 30 40 kgs, and very less will be weighing around 90 100 kgs. So around a central value you will have lot of almost all the values, and as you go farther away from the central value in both the directions, you will find very less number of values. Okay, so this is what it looks like in this particular central value, most of the values you will find here, and as you go farther from the central value in the both the directions, very less number of values you will be find. These data sources tend to be around a central value with no bias left or right, and it gets close to a normal distribution like this. Right. So we use a continuous distribution to model the behavior of these data sources. Notice the continuous line and area in this PDF. This is all continuous because if you talk about the height and weight, then the height and weight does not have any predetermined category. So if you want to find what is the probability that your friend is weight is 70 kgs, right? So weight can be 70 kgs, 70.1 kg, 70.125 kgs. So it is a continuous thing. That's why we are using a continuous distribution, unlike rolling a die where the outcome is only 1 out of 6. Okay, unlike discrete distribution where the sum of all the bars equal to 1, a normal distribution, in a normal distribution the area under the curve equals 1. So like here in binomial distribution, the sum of all these bars will be equal to 1, right? Because it is discrete, and here it is continuous. So the area under this particular curve, all this bluish area, if you add all of them, you will find that the whole area equals to 1. right? Is also called, this normal distribution is also called a bell curve or a Gaussian distribution because it is like symmetric. It looks like a bell, jingle bell, right? It is always symmetrical. So asymmetrical curves display skew or are not normal. So there are like also symmetrical means left side is equal to right side, but there are also asymmetrical curves like these, right? And they are not called normal. So the normal distribution should be symmetrical. They are not normal if they are not symmetrical. The probability of a specific outcome is zero. So if you want to talk about like what the probability of my friend's weight is exactly 70 kgs, it is going to be zero. So you can't when you're talking about probabilities of a continuous variable, then you can talk about like in terms of intervals. So the probability that my friend's weight is between 60.69 kgs and 71 kgs is has a meaning, right? But if you talk like this, my the probability of my friend's weight is exactly equal to 70 kgs has no meaning in case of a continuous distribution. Okay, we can only find probabilities over a specified interval or range of outcomes. Okay, so we need to specify an interval because we need to find the area. Our straight line does not have an area, right? So the central value is the mean. The negative end is called the lower tail. The positive end is called the upper tail. Okay. So for normal distribution, the mean is equal to the median, and the median is equal to the mode. All of these values are equal, right? If you want to talk about standard normal distribution, then standard normal distribution, the mean is always zero, and standard deviation is always one. This is a standard normal distribution. Standard sigma, you remember, it is the standard uh, deviation. Okay, so between zero, between like -1 standard deviation to the left and one standard deviation to the right, lies the 68.27% of the values. That means if this is the distribution of weight of the students of a class and this is the mean, then 68%, around 68% student will lie around one standard deviation away, right? And 95% of the students will lie between like two standard deviations, both in the negative and the right direction, okay, in the positive direction. So within just two standard deviations away, all the 95 or majority of people will lie. And like if you take into account these three standard deviations on the both the sides of the mean, like mine from -3 standard deviations to the +3 standard deviation, it will cover almost all the data, 99.73%. Okay, all normal curves exhibit the same behavior, symmetry about the mean, right? So normal curves exhibit the same behavior, they are symmetric about the mean. 99.73 values percent of the values fall within three standard deviations. Okay, however, the mean does not have to be zero and sigma does not have to be equal to one. Okay, so the normal distribution can have any mean and sigma, but standard normal distribution has mean is equal to zero and sigma is equal to one, right? So it's like normal distribution formula. So the other populations can also be normal as well. So all these two distributions are normal. This blue one has mu is equal to zero, sigma is equal to one. So it is a standard normal distribution. It is a special case because it is standard. This is also normal distribution with mu is equal to one and sigma is equal to 0.5, right? So they can come in different shapes and sizes. If we determine that a population approximates a normal distribution, then we can make some powerful inferences about it once we know its median standard deviation. So suppose we are working with data and we find that this data follows normal distribution, then we can make a lot of powerful inferences, or we can make a lot of uh, we can make out a lot of information about that particular data based after finding its means and standard deviation. Okay, normal distribution formulas and z scores. Okay, so in the statistics section of the course, we will be using sampling, standard error, and hypothesis testing to evaluate experiments, right? And a large part of this process is known as to standardize a normal distribution. How to standardize a normal distribution? So we can take any normal distribution and standardize it to a standard normal distribution. So we can take any normal distribution and we can change it to a standard normal distribution where the mean is zero and the standard deviation is one. Okay, this process of changing any normal distribution to standard normal distribution is called standardization. Okay, we'll be able to take any value from a normal distribution and standardize it using a z-score. So we can transform a normal distribution to a standard normal distribution by using a z-score. Okay, so using this z-score, we can then calculate a particular x values percentile, right? We can use the z-score to figure out where this particular range is lying in the with respect to the standard normal distribution. Okay, so percentile is a way of saying what percent falls below this value. Okay, so if you score 90 percentile, that means you 90% of the students are behind you. You are above. You are you rank higher than the 90% of the class. If your percentile is 50 percentile, that means 50% of the class is behind you and 50% of the class is ahead of you, right? So percentile gives the percentage of people falling below you, right? So meaning 95 percentile values indicates that 95% of all other data points fall below this value. Okay, for example, if a student scores 700 on 1700 on the SATs and their score is 90 percentile, that then we know that 90% of all other students scored less than 700 1700. Okay, if we can model our data as a normal distribution, we can convert the values in the normal distribution to standard normal distribution to calculate a percentile. Okay, so if we have data in normal distribution, then we can convert it into a standard normal distribution with mu is equal to 0, sigma is equal to 1, so that we can get the percentile. Okay, for example, we can have a normal distribution of test point scores with some mean and standard deviation. We can then use a z-score to figure out the percentile of any particular test score, right? We'll see how. So this is what the formula of normal distribution looks like. Fx is equal to 1 by under root of 2 pi sigma square multiplied by e to the power minus x minus mu whole square divided by 2 sigma square. Okay, mu, standard deviation, e and pi, you know all these terms. So this produce our plot with a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. So this formula gives me this plot. To gain insights about a specific value x in other normal populations, we standardize x by calculating a z-score. So for any kind of normal distributions, we have to calculate this z-score or z-score by using this formula x minus mu divided by sigma. We can then determine the x percentile by looking at a z-table. So, there is an openly available z-table which is used to reference what is the percentile of the x. A z-table of standard normal probabilities maps a particular z-score to the area under the normal distribution curve to the left of the score. Since the total area under the curve is 1, the probabilities are bounded by 0 and 1. Okay, so this is what my probabilities look like. Suppose a point is lying here, somewhere here, so I have the z-score, I can find the z value and I can find the what is the probability like this. And we have also a z table which gives me the area from the center or from the mean value, right? So if my value is like 0. Suppose my value is 0.061, right? So 0.061, so my z value percentile should be 56, more than 56%, right? So in Microsoft Excel, the following functions return the z-scores and probabilities. Suppose your z value is this, your input is 70, you want to find what is the output probability, right? You will use normal distribution. Normal dist B2, you will normal dist and you will pass this particular 70 value. Your output will be a probability like this, 75, right? And if you input probability value and you want to get the z-score, then you will do normal z, norms inverse. Okay, so normal s inverse, right? Then it will give you a z value. So basically norm distribution dist will give you a p value if you input z value, and if you input p value you will use norms inverse in inv, it will give you a z value, right? From using, if you want to use Python, you can import stats from SciPy. You can do z is equal to 0.70 and stats.norm.cdf7. It will give you the probability, right? If you want to give the probability, you will do stats.norm.ppf. It will give you the z-score. So let's take an example. A company is looking to hire a new database administrator. They give a standardized test to applicants to measure their technical knowledge. Their first applicant, Amy, scores 87. Based on her score, is Amy exceptionally qualified? So there is a test where Amy scores 87. So what is her performance like, whether she is exceptionally qualified or not, right? So to decide how well an applicant scored, we need to understand the population. Based on 1,000 of previous tests, we know that the mean score is 75. So the mean or mu is 75 out of 100 with a standard deviation of 7 points. Standard deviation of sigma is 7, right? So now first let's convert ME's score to a standardized Z score. So Z is equal to X minus mu by sigma. Here ME's score is X. 87 minus 75 upon 7, Z is equal to 1.7415. Right, now we'll look up the probability or percentile at this particular Z. So Z is equal to 1.714. Right, so Z is 1.17 and 14 is this particular value. So this x-axis gives me the value after two decimal from second decimal, and for the first decimal I should look here the y-axis. So here the value is 0.9564. That means she the for Amy's score the percentile is 95 percentile. That means she is better than the 95% of the people. Okay, so 9.9564 represents the area to the left of the ME's score. This means that ME outscored 95.64% of the other who took the same test. So she is like the top 5% of the test, right? So this is what I had to discuss with respect to distributions. I wish you all the best, and thank you for your time.